From the love and relationships section, I'd like us to first of all to look at Porphyria's lover. And this poem tells of an obviously deranged man who takes desperate measures to make sure that he owns his lover, that she becomes his alone. It is written as one long stanza in dramatic monologue with an asymmetrical rhyme scheme with 8 syllables to the line, tetrameter. This lack of symmetry indicates the narrator's instability, while the regularity of the rhythm is in harmony with his disconcerting calmness over his actions. The poem opens with pathetic fallacy setting the scene. The rain sat early in, the sullen wind was soon awake. The personification gives an eerie, strange foreboding to this opening with a sense of malice, for the wind tore the elm tops down for spite. The narrator is deeply emotional as he listens to the storm with heart fit to break while he is separated from his lover. Porphyria arrives, and her arrival changes the way he feels, but not immediately, as he sits sulking while she shuts the cold out and knelt down to rekindle the fire. The language which describes her willingness to make him comfortable is positive and loving, as she made all the cottage warm. By contrast, despite the fact that she has come through cold and storm and soiled her gloves relighting the fire for him, no voice replied when she calls him, for Browning offers us a petulant image of the narrator. Porphyria is presented as flirtatious and generous-hearted, free both with her actions and endearments, for she made my cheek lie on her shoulder and murmured how she loved me. The narrator begins to believe that Porphyria really does love him, but his conundrum, she needs, in his opinion, to commit to him totally, free from pride and vainer ties dissever. He resents the part of her life in which he has no part. But he has mixed thoughts about this, as he acknowledges that she left her other companions to come to him, so pale for love of her, through wind and rain. The repetition of pathetic fallacy emphasizes the sense of unease and the unpredictability of the situation. We realize that the narrator is dangerous and unstable when he contemplates what to do, stressing the fact that she was his. The repetition of mine, and his desire to keep her perfectly pure with its plosive alliteration has menacing overtones. This menace is given a sense of incredulity when he deludes himself. No pain felt she, I am quite sure she felt no pain, and the repetitive emphatic no reveals his need to convince himself. By this time his delusion seems to be bizarre, as he says that when he warily opens her eyes, using the simile of a bee enclosed in a bud, as if afraid he might be hurt, her eyes are without a stain, a situation that would be impossible. His delusion continues, and the plosive blushed right he attributes to his burning kiss rather than the effects of his strangulation. Browning's portrait of this man is disturbing, in the murderer's conviction that all is well now that Porphyria is dead, and his long night's vigil increases his certainty. He tells himself that her smiling, rosy little head is glad that now she's with him permanently, that it is her utmost will and her darling wish, a strange comment with its connotation that Porphyria connived at her own death, darling meaning favourite in this context. We are given a happy, charming picture of Porphyria and feel that the injustice and cruelty of having her life ended by the destructive, selfish love of her lover. The narrator finds it necessary to have God's approval for what he has done, and the implication is that because he has sat there all night, and yet God has not said a word, he has divine approval, or that he has escaped divine punishment. The former is more likely, as it is apparent from the rest of the poem that he feels that his actions are not only justifiable, but desirable for both him and Porphyria. As in My Last Duchess, this is a dramatic monologue told from a man's point of view about a woman who is close to him. Again, despite the fact that we do not hear the woman's voice at all, our sympathy lies totally with her. In Porphyria's lover, as in My Last Duchess, an apparently innocent loving woman meets a terrible death at the hands of a jealous man whose role should be to love and protect her. Charlotte Mew poem The Farmer's Bride is again poignant because her life was often deeply unhappy and tinged with tragedy, and this poem can be seen to reflect her own ambivalence towards men, and the fear of the young bride of her husband's sexual advances is very poignant. Charlotte Mew herself was frightened of men. The poem is in the form of a dramatic monologue, mainly iambic tetrameter, told through the voice of the husband, a farmer who is bewildered by the attitude of his young bride. When she runs away, she is brought forcibly back to the farm and locked in to endure a life of domestic servitude, but taking herself up into the attic to sleep alone. Both husband and wife are distressed by the situation for very different reasons. The farmer admits that his bride might well have been too young for marriage. Too young, maybe, but he is a down-to-earth man and says there is too much to do at harvest time than bide and woo, meaning that courtship has no place in his busy life, and that he needed a wife to run the domestic side of the farm. His insensitive attitude leads to immediate problems, but the language he uses to describe her fear is strangely lyrical and sympathetic. Like the shut of a winter's day, her smile went out, and this powerful simile regarding the sudden change in the girl is followed by another with the gentle alliteration emphasizing her vulnerability, more like a little frightened fae, an allusion to a fairy. Her running away, like some terrified animal, seems almost inevitable. Further comparisons with wild animals are made when she is likened to a fleeing hare, that she has a wide brown stare and is all in a shiver and a scare, just like an animal at bay. The farmer has been married 3 years, summers, and he reflects in some bemusement on the present state of affairs. She carries out the domestic chores expected of her, but her only real contact is with the animals who loves her, as she interacts happily with birds and rabbits and such as they. But her terror of men seems to have increased, and the repetitious "not near, not near" is directed at the men on the farm. There is a sad comment on the situation by the farmer when he relates how fond the cattle are of her, look round like children at her call. He comments, "I've hardly heard her speak at all." Not only does she not sleep with him, but she also has no social interaction with him at all. 4 of the most beautiful lines in the poem followed, packed with similes about nature and her affinity with it. She is shy and swift as a leveret. She is straight and slight as a tree, with the alliteration emphasizing her smooth, slender, upright form, and she is sweet and wild. But, the farmer pleads, what to me? He is unable to understand her reaction and attitude. As the days pass from summer through autumn to winter, the farmer becomes more bewildered and discontented. He speaks in a country dialect but utters words of beauty, revealing a sensitive side to him. The colours he uses to describe the countryside are beautiful, with the brown of the oaks, the blue smoke, black earth with its white frosty layer, and the red berries. These observations lead the farmer to contemplate Christmas and the fact that it is a time for birth. What's Christmas time, without there be some other in the house than we? The last, relatively short stanza reveals that the farmer has grown close to breaking point, and we fear for his bride up in the attic there, alone, although he describes her as a poor maid. His frustration is growing as he considers the fact that there is but a stair between us. His language takes on a desperate note with his exclamation, "Oh my God!" The repetition displays his desire, the down, the soft young down of her, and again she is described as one would a young animal. He also repeats the brown of her, and links this with her eyes and hair. These last lines are full of half-rhyme and repetition and indicate how close he is to breaking point, and we fear there can be no happy ending for either of them, but particularly his bride. Singsong by Daljit Nagra is quite amusing, but also has quite a message about modernizing his culture. The form of this poem is irregular, but has some lyrical, humorous, repeated rhymes, as the poet takes on the persona of a young, newly married shopkeeper who resents the time spent working when he could be with his bride. His relationship with his wife contrasts sharply with that of the farmer in The Farmer's Bride. The young shopkeeper's bride is worldly wise and modern, with ideas and attitudes of her own. Nagra uses dialect to give emphasis to the voice of the narrator and uses light-hearted language and puns such as the title. Repetition is used, which emphasises the rhythmic feel of the poem. Vi share in chapati, vi share in di chutney. And the chorus adds to this light-hearted refrain, Hey Sing, where you been? Putney is Punjabi for wife, so again there is a play on words, here along with the simile to describe their lovemaking. The shopkeeper is unembarrassed by the criticism he receives from his customer and repeats it with the alliterative lemons are limes, giving a lingering emphasis to the comments. He has no regard for the quality of the shop's provisions or its opening times. Perhaps his sense of injustice from his father want me not to have a break enables him to shrug off the accusation that his is the worst Indian shop on the whole Indian road. The shopkeeper's new wife is quite a character, with her loud, uncoordinated dress sense, blending her red crew cut, tartan sari, and donkey jacket with her clearly dangerous personality, eyes of a gun, and more endearingly, tummy of a teddy, with the crisp alliteration creating a vivid picture of this young woman. Her husband admires her skill in operating her dating site, a far cry from an arranged marriage situation, yet, paradoxically, she is helping to arrange marriages. She exploits her clients, two cat, by charging them cheese of her price. He also finds her disrespectful attitude towards his parents amusing, and there is humour in effing at my mum in all the colours of Punjabi. She also implies, not too subtly, that his father likes alcohol too much, when she stumble like a drunk making fun of my daddy. This girl is far from the stereotypical Indian bride. The bride and groom are of second-generation Punjabi culture, and Nagra is demonstrating the differences between the generations, both in work ethic and personal life. His father clearly owns several shops. I run just one, and his son is indifferent to any effort that went into the building of his father's business. He has chosen a wife who also shows contempt for tradition. The young couple have their dreams and their mutual love. The narrator addresses the shoppers directly when he writes musically and alliteratively of the concrete, cool precinct, the whispering stairs by which they go to reach the silver stool where they share their love and thoughts. The shopkeeper's love for his wife is double the cost of the moon, and indeed is priceless. The views of the community are irrelevant as far as they are concerned. All that matters is their mutual gratification and their tender romance. The final poem from this section is another Shelley poem, Love's Philosophy. And the word philosophy comes from the Greek meaning love of wisdom, and has come to be defined as the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality and existence, and how we make sense of it all. Here, Shelley tries to come to an understanding of the nature of love. He was one of the Romantics, and as such believed in the freedom of self-expression, emotional intensity, spontaneity and originality. The Romantics put emphasis on nature also, and thought of themselves as free spirits expressing imaginative truths. The form of Love's Philosophy is regular in its rhyme scheme, except for 2 lines in each stanza which don't fully rhyme, just as the narrator and his loved one stand apart from harmonious nature. The argument is clear. If everything in nature is linked harmoniously, why isn't his relationship also, especially as it is decreed by God, by law divine? Shelley uses beautiful imagery in his description of the harmony of nature and the fact that fountains mingle as they flow into the rivers, which in their turn flow into the sea, give a sense of fluid, unbroken connection, while winds with their divine connotations blend with sweet emotion. Shelley avers, like Donne before him, that nothing in this world is single, nothing detached, and that this is the decree of God. The stanza finishes with a plaintive plea that if everything's being is merged with that of another, why not I with thine? Shelley's thoughts soar as he imagines that mountains kiss high heaven and continues the personification with waves clasping one another and dismissing any idea of a sister flower disdaining its brother. Indeed, all nature is loving and supporting of any aspect of nature, whether it be the sunlight clasping the earth and moonbeams kissing the sea. His words are hyperbolic, and he is repetitious in his argument, with clasp and kriss being stressed. His argument is simple, in that if everything in nature finds it possible and easy to cooperate and come together, then surely he should be able to be together with the woman he loves. The last line in each stanza is monosyllabic and simply expressed, for Shelley finds nothing complicated in his assertion that he should be one with his love. Shelley's introduction of God into his reasoning helps to give it extra power, for divine approval makes his words more persuasive. But ironically, Shelley was an atheist and was expelled from university for his views. So perhaps this poem is not altogether serious, but rather meant to be playful and amusing. Either way, it is lyrical, and the central idea with its natural imagery is very endearing.